Hello and a very warm welcome to ETCFO Presents ETCFO Blueprint in partnership with SAP. I'm your host Divina Lasson. Now in this series, we're thrilled to bring you conversations with India's leading CFOs to help us get very unique insights about the journey of the modern CFO. We're happy to partner with SAP, who is a market leader in enterprise application software. Now, SAP has recently announced a program for startups called Grow with SAP for Scale-Ups. As part of this program is a community called the Hypergrowth Hub that puts the startup leaders in the spotlight through exciting and innovative programs like CFO Blueprint. Alright, on this episode, we're here to discuss the key to successful enterprise, building a risk-ready culture. We deep dive into understanding how, in an uncertain world, building a risk-ready culture is emerging as a critical determinant of the enterprise's success. So here to discuss this and much more, it's my pleasure to welcome our very esteemed guest today, Ajay Shankar, CFO, Ultraviolet Automotive, and Vivek Venkatesan, CFO, Ninja Kart. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Davina. I think it's a great opportunity. I think the topic and discussion is quite closer to heart.
Yes,
and,
wonderful.
Do my best to share my perspectives
Yes,
and also learn during the process.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. So exactly, gentlemen, we're here to talk about something so relevant, which is how leaders can really look at building a risk-ready culture within the organization. And to kickstart, if each of you can just really sort of encapsulate for us how you as a leader look at this aspect. How do you ensure that the culture of being risk-ready can really be pervasive throughout the way an organization functions? Ajay, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. So in fact, risk is all around us.
Yes.
If you see every day, you have to encounter risk. And if you are in business, how efficiently and how, in a way you manage it, that it is an opportunity for you, it becomes critical.
Yes.
And when you have to create a culture of risk-free for your organization, you have to really look at two aspects of risk. One aspect is, are you risk-averse as an organization, or you are a risk-seeking organization? Yes. And that has to go in the DNA of the organization. On the one side, when you are looking at risk averse, you are really trying to optimize, control, and mitigate risk. And when you are looking at risk seeking, you have to gear up the organization that you look at risk, take it as an opportunity, and work on doing something better. So it also helps you as an opportunity to challenge status quo.
Yes.
So that is how it is. And if you really have to create a culture, generally it's a pyramid on which you work. And culture becomes some important piece at the foundation, and you work on it, and then comes the matrices to control aspect and managing style, and on the top is the governance. Yeah. So you work on all the aspects, you communicate well, leaders do play a key role, but how the whole organization reacts and responds to the risk becomes key.
Absolutely. And how would you say the process for the organization to really make risk mitigation a part of the decision-making process? How does that happen in the organization?
So, risk can happen at any level in the organization. And when the decisions are taken, they are taken at different level. So to make that culture as part of the organization, you have to really give a comfort to the teams.
Yes.
You give us psychological safety, yes, right? That becomes an important part. Yes. Of making a risk-ready organization. The people are openly sharing about their views. The diverse views are accepted and appreciated. You also sometimes go and award people who take risk in the organization. Yes. That becomes a key aspect.
Sure.
And you build on it. Of course, leaders do have to demonstrate from the top that yes, and examples are shared, open communications are done. You educate, you train the team members, and you enable them, of course. Creating a framework under which you work and manage and review becomes an important aspect. But I feel it's all across the organization. It's the heart, it's the art, it's the science, which yes. all come together to manage risk efficiently.
Yes. Absolutely wonderful. Vivek, let's get you in on this.
So I guess for me, to set the tone for risk culture, really it starts from the top. And whether you're an experienced organization or a new organization, I think two things which I really try to bring in so that the top management is aligned. One is basically connecting risk management to value creation, okay. And that really resonates with people. And the second thing is always trying to evaluate risk in the context of reward creation, yes. Right? So risk-reward equation always resonates well with people, and then there's an automatic taken. And once the culture is set from the top, then the entire organization follows.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how do you see the influence that you, again, as a leader, would make across teams, across functions, across roles when it comes to risk management? And as you say, really emphasizing this risk reward aspect of the entire culture of the organization?
I think one very clearly is to have an open discussion, right, in the organization in terms of what we are set out to do, and in that context, how does risk fit in, right? Does it fit into the overall ethos of the organization, or what we are trying to achieve as an organization? And the other thing is very clearly in that context, lay out what is the overall risk framework, right, that lays in the organization, and then once that ice is broken in terms of recognizing risk, right, for building the organization the way it is, then it's a question of having deeper discussions in terms of how do you actually permeate this across the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Ajay, let's get you in on this. Also, from the point of view of how, again, as a leader, if you can encapsulate the leader's role in really ensuring that risk management strategy is in place and enforced across the teams, across functions in the organization.
Yeah, the important piece becomes is when you're trying to develop a culture overall is the alignment of your strategic goals versus your appetite to manage the risk.
Yes.
And how you are as an organization looking at risk to be managed across the organization. How leaders are sharing on their experiences of managing risk at a team at a large, and how you are really picking a point of experience and sharing it. I will share one example. Like we had a situation when one of the product had a poor gross margins, or I'll say low gross margins, and the risk of commodity pricing impacting the cost further, and the margins went down. And we were already struggling with the margin and the market presence, but it was a risk which has hit us. We had already had a problem. So it also gave us an opportunity to revisit. And we did go and revisit the pricing in the market. We did increase pricing with the caution that we may lose market. But in fact, the market reacted, everybody moved forward, everybody increased the pricing. And from a risk to an opportunity to a corrective action and helping us was the journey. So decision was taken at the management level, but it was communicated back with the team that take these opportunities, work on them, and try to optimize. So, these experiences are shared with the larger team. There is a transparency.
Absolutely.
And of course, you do motivate people who do well in managing the risk at their respective levels in the organization.
Yes, you raise a very valid point, of course, about transparency and communication. So, Vivek, to get you in on this, how again do you really ensure that this level of communication is a robust one, a consistent one, and you do have constant communication happening across the teams in the organization?
So, I think there are a couple of ways of doing it. One is, I think, as part of your annual planning cycle or your operating cycle, where you basically decide on goals of the organization. Then you decide on your risk appetite, and then what will be your risk management framework during the year, and how the entire organization will have to sort of fold up within the risk management framework. That is one, which is setting the tone and then linking that with the long-term goals or the strategic goals. And the second thing which goes without saying is that there has to be a rhythm, and there has to be a rhythm of recognizing, reviewing, discussing, and taking actions to mitigate risk, right? It's all about cadences. It's all about getting people together, the right people together, and ensuring that what is agreed, right, gets implemented within the organization, and people like that, right? If there is a rhythm of reviewing risk, a lot of things get in place.
Yes, absolutely. Any specific KPIs, specific metrics that you turn to measure the success of these initiatives?
Depends on the kinds of risk. I think when you really look at credit risk, literally you look at delinquency rates, right? And you look at delinquency rates over a period of time in terms of, and there are various KPIs in terms of at a point in time delinquency versus a lagged delinquency in terms of, it is very important to basically correlate risk to point of origination, right? So that's something which we really look at. I think the second thing which I think which is also important in this context, is for certain risks there are no KPIs. For instance, if it's a reputational risk, right, there are no KPIs for that, and that is something that you need to have a sense in terms of highlighting those, and which can have real large value destruction. Those are things where are large risks, no KPIs, but there has to be a way of communicating that across the organization.
Yes, yes.
So it's, I think, a mix of both.
Yes, absolutely. And the latter, of course, is probably far more challenging, I would
Of course.
imagine, for management, especially. How would you handle such a situation?
No, I think one thing in all of this is to look at the problem objectively, right? There's a lot of emotions that go across an organization when a large event happens, right? So it's a question of one, looking at the problem quite objectively. The second thing is basically taking people into confidence in terms of solving the problem in the right way for the organization, right? When a large event happens. And third is basically, have regular discussions that it could be several meetings during a day when a large event happens, to ensure that the communication across the organization, both internally and externally, is quite robust and tight. Ensure that nothing goes out of hand. And fourth most important thing is the learnings, right? And on what really has gone wrong and what do you do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ajay, any, again, same question to you, any specific KPIs or metrics that you turn to really analyze the success of your risk management initiatives?
Right. So, of course, there's no one KPI or metrics which you can look at, but it's a mix of few things which are done. Of course, you follow COSO model to understand the risk and build resilience. You work on the ERM in totality, but also because risk could be in any shape, size, any time in the organization hitting you. So you put a structure of rolling up the risk appetite and risk profiling of the company. And a large company, which could be multi-locational, multi-countries, multi-product profiling, you put a process of rolling up on a small template that what is the risk you are looking at potentially, what is the probability it can hit, what could be the quantum, and what is the corrective actions or solutions available on hand. And that is rolled up and consolidated. So you get a sort of a dashboard, which gives you really the feel where you are sitting. Of course, when you are really looking at risk, one side is the probability, other side is the impact. If you do a heat map, and everything cannot be gauged, but still there are a lot of risks which we know we are sitting on, and these could be quantified, looked at, and then you work on them in a structured way to iron them out over a period of time.
I think just one point I would want to also add to what you mentioned is, I think some of these KPIs are ever evolving, right? Because risk is not a constant. So risk has to be contextualized, right? And sometimes what happens is that you then start looking at information and KPIs in a different way, specific to the problem. So this has to be. So for instance, let's say if a particular cohort in a portfolio has gone bad, right? Then you really get into specific details in terms of the dynamics around that specific cohort, right? It could be demographics, it could be point in time, right? Then you start cutting the information across these sort of parameters to really point out what really is the trigger that causes the risk. So I think that's it has to be dynamic and ever evolving in the context of risk.
Absolutely. So given the complexity, of course, of the risk environment, which is ever increasing in today's world, are there any sort of key tips or key takeaways that you could leave organizations that are really looking to inculcate a risk management culture in their organization? Some key takeaways for them.
I would say flexibility is key. You have to remain flexible. The environment around you is dynamic, and whatever process you put has to change in time. It has to be agile. You have to keep people along. The culture becomes an important piece. It has to roll up from all the levels. It cannot be that leaders are seeing the risk, but other team members are not that involved. You have to be very open, transparent, and working on it. Structured format and a way of governance becomes a key aspect to look at these, and then you can sail through bad days.
I think it's a question of one, striking a balance between risk and reward, and in some cases it is slightly underestimated. Is at some stage you have to say no. And there are clearly areas where it is a no, and people understand that. provided you provide context and all of that. That's very important, which I've always, to me, so from a culture standpoint, right, if you are sensing a risk, I always try to inculcate this behavioral thing in people, right? You have to, for the sake of the organization, and stand up and say what's wrong and where is the risk, right? So that's an open culture you need to sort of encourage in the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, gentlemen. So if you again just have to encapsulate the way you approach risk management in 2024, of course, there are so many, there's so many factors here, right? We're looking at a very volatile environment, but we're also looking at the influence of technology, digitization, of course, taking every single industry by storm, hybrid work models. I mean, there's so many factors, and of course, you both enumerated far more. So your approach to risk management 2024, any sort of key takeaway for us?
So I would say yes, it's a very dynamic environment, very challenging. The risks are much more than what it used to be. The risks which are hitting us today, which used to happen in 3 years, are happening in 3 months.
Yes.
So the profile of risk itself, the quantum itself is changing.
Yes.
Looking at the supply chain impact, it has been for days, months.
Yes.
So the tenure of risk is also much larger. I would say the way we approach is be positive, be happy, and look at all these risks and challenges with the eye of opportunity wherever you can optimize.
Yes.
There are some risks which surely no, you cannot tolerate, you have to mitigate, you have to control. But on the other softer side is risk is also giving you an opportunity.
Yes.
So I would also say enjoy the phase of being in an environment which is dynamic.
Yes.
And do the best.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vivek.
I think for me, couple of things I think specifically which I have set out for me for 2024 is one, be extra sensitive to evolving risks and create that culture in the organization. Everybody, rather than being reactive to risk, is proactive, right? Specifically in risk management and control functions is number one. And I think the second thing is to not to commit the same mistakes again, which I think is sometimes undersold. And that's the kind of culture I'm trying to create the organization, right? So that we don't commit the same mistakes again. And then third is, I think, creating an environment where people feel assured and basically, don't become risk averse, but are risk aware and are able to manage their portfolios accordingly.
Absolutely.
Right? That will be key for me this year.
Wonderful.
And further to what in fact Vivek is saying, an important aspect which is coming up is that there is a cost of managing risk.
Sure.
And you should be upfront to put that cost because you want to protect your uncertainties or control your uncertainties. So there should be defined budget, there should be a defined mechanism. There's an outlay today, but your future is protected. So to be savvy about the cost, and it's sort of insurance when you are looking at protecting your organization against these risks.
Wonderful, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Such inspiring words to slowly wrap up the conversation. However, before we finish, we have a small surprise for you, which is a rapid fire round. So we're looking at a quick one-word answer to understand both of you as, of course, CFOs, but as people outside of the boardroom as well. What does a leader think and how do you process certain things? Yeah. So we have some quick questions for each of you. All right. To kickstart, if you were not a CFO, what would you have been? Vic?
Me?
Yeah.
I would have been a sports writer.
Okay. All right.
I would have been a techie.
Okay. Yes, this makes sense. If you were writing a book about your finance journal, what would the title be?
Never ending.
Nice. Yeah.
Prepare for bad days and hope for the good days.
Okay. Nice. Very inspiring. What's the toughest finance challenge you've tackled and how have you come out on top?
Several, but fundraise.
Fundraising. Yes. Wonderful.
Many, but I would say managing the compliances, the complexities.
Yes. Compliance is such a big topic. Have you ever had an aha moment doing something completely unrelated to finance that has helped you in your role?
Outside of work?
Yes.
I mean, outside of work, I don't think about work at all, right? So I think every day is an aha moment. I follow a lot of sports. So
yeah, just unwinding gives you that space. Yeah, sure. Sanjay?
A lot of things which give you movement outside work because you are looking forward to that. So I do spend a lot of time repairing old items and all, and
Is
things which
it?
are
Okay.
just kept in your cupboard. You take it out,
Yeah.
you try to make it functional, and they start working. Then there is a moment of joy. Yeah.
Nice.
So
And
that keeps
again,
me
that
moving.
gives you the space and the
Yes,
capacity to process things. Wonderful. All right. If you could describe your approach to finance in one word, what would that be?
Lead.
Lead. Nice.
Dynamic.
Dynamic. And finally, gentlemen, one reason why you love finance.
Um, ability to influence institution building.
Yes.
I would say numbers to the decision and decisions to numbers.
There you go. Yeah.
So what you
Impactful.
see in the financials is all summarization of what has happened in the
Yes,
organization.
absolutely.
at the
Across
end
the
of day.
board. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you
been
so
an
much.
absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your insights and really inspiring organizations out there on how to build their organizational culture when it comes to risk management. Thank you. It's been
Thank
a
you so
pleasure.
much
Thank you very much.
for the opportunity.
Right, on that note, we conclude this episode of ET CFO Presents ET Studio CFO Blueprint in association with SAP. Now, don't forget to search online for Grow with SAP for scale-ups. And do tune in next time for more strategies and solutions to navigate the evolving landscape of finance from India's industry stalwarts. Until next time, many thanks for watching.